NFL Inside Blitz Week 5 with Ted Sobel from Sports USA Live and Ron A Sports and me, LVC. What's going on, guys?
Yeah, it's good to be back. Week number 5 and another international game. We got our Sports USA doubleheader. And hey, we didn't think about this a while back. We kept saying, you know what? The second game of the Sports USA doubleheader, the Jets and the Broncos. But it's the Hackett Bowl, and you got to love that.
It is the Hackett Bowl.
Hopefully not a bunch of hacks, as we like to say.
Whatever happened to Buddy Hackett? He just passed away a few years ago.
Yeah, he's gone. He's gone. But Nathaniel Hackett's still around, and that's going to be an interesting little get-together there.
Yeah, everything's fine on this end. We made it through another Thursday night game. A lot of people got carted off at various times with injuries. It's one of those things when you play a physical game, you play on Sunday, then you ask them to come back on Thursday. I still don't understand it, but we watch it, we wager on it, we talk about it, so it goes on.
Yeah, you know what? Before we go into too much details about everything, let's give a little praise to the late, great Dick Butkus, because if it wasn't for him, I think this game would be very different. That guy changed a lot of stuff. And I remember watching the Bears when I was a kid with my dad on TV, and he would say, that guy is different. And he's the greatest middle linebacker who ever lived, and I don't think it's close. And so 80 years old, good for him. I know a few people who knew him pretty well, and supposedly just a great guy. So R.I.P. there, Mr. Great Dick Butkus.
Yeah, my heart sank a little bit, even though I never got a chance to see him play. You know, I grew up on the highlights and word of mouth, and obviously when he was an actor, his authenticity came through, and
Yep.
just a nice guy.
Yeah, it really was. I got a chance to shake his hand one time, and I'll never forget the grip. It was like, wow, those hands are the size of Godzilla. Anyway, a good win for the Bears last night. Of course, any win for the Bears is a good win. So nice to see them get off the schneid. 14 straight losses before that one. I don't know if you guys have many thoughts about Justin Fields. I want to go into too much depth here, but again, around 50% of passing, and it looked like the Washington defense didn't show up. Guys were wide open all night long, and he still only was 15 of 29. So you'll just take the W any way you can, right?
Well, there was talk today about maybe offering him to Atlanta for a second-round pick. What do you think about that, Ron?
He's not going anywhere this year. He's on audition this year to see if when they get that high draft choice, whether
his market value right now is as high as it's ever going to be coming off of that game.
Well, I didn't hear one person talk about the key factor why the Bears were so up, because they released Nathan Peterman before the game, and I think that was the difference.
He petered out, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I learned about this game, and I mentioned this, that I would talk about it to Cris today, is that I lean Chicago, but I wasn't going to pull the trigger on Chicago. It just was an ugly game. But I was charting out, like I always do, the player props and what I would do, trying to find some unders, and everything I was finding was over. Yes, there'd be a score in the first 7 minutes. Cole Kmet was vastly underpriced. I mean, 3.5 catches plus 129, plus 115 in some places. Herbert, the running back, I thought, gee, you mean he can't get 46.5 yards against Washington? And the more I thought about it, the more, if I'm playing all these overs, maybe this game is going to go over. And it did trigger a bet. And it's kind of my weekly teaching moment again. If I think setting thresholds for players, even if you don't do player props, if you set thresholds and say, I think this guy is going to do this, I think this guy is going to do that, it puts you in a frame of mind for the game. And it certainly helped me. So I encourage everybody to do that. I didn't think I was going to be playing anything on this game. And then I said, wait a second, everything points to over.
That's
I
great.
told you Chicago in the over. I use Chicago in the contest. I rarely do that on Thursdays.
And by the way, another defensive coach in Rivera, and they have allowed over 33 points in 4 straight games. What the hell is going on there?
Completely unexpected.
Totally. And they've looked good at times, but they let games get away. Now they've lost 3 in a row, and they're back to being the Commandos. What can I tell you?
So what do we have for the games this week?
Carolina, Detroit is our first game. Your Lions doing everything right these days. One of the things that I really like in Detroit's favor is the extra rest. They're off a Thursday night game the previous week against Green Bay, and they destroyed them. So all of that time off is really a nice thing at this stage before they get themselves a bye week. But what's going on with Bryce Young? He's learning, he's getting there, but some of the guys that are around him in the league, the other first-round picks, are doing a hell of a lot better. So Panthers 0-4 right now. They are now, thanks to the Bears win last night, the final winless team in the league. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. Detroit hasn't started 4-1 since 2011, and I think it's time. Don't you, Cris?
I fully expect them to be 4-1. They are going to be a little shorthanded. Saint Brown, or whatever his name is.
Amon-Ra, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he's probably 40-60 to play at best. Branch is out. Decker not practicing. So another handful of injuries, but they get Jameson back off of suspension, and they're a little bit healthier elsewhere. And I think it's pretty evident that this team it belongs in the discussion, as a top team, and they should take care of business here. Whether they cover 10, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
The situationally, teams in Carolina's situation, coming in winless, facing a team that's been blowing out other teams, usually finds a way to cover at an extremely high rate. So that would be my concern, betting the point spread on this.
So what would they say in Vegas? What would be the odds Jameson Williams came back early? A little odd joke there, right?
So, with the Lions, 3 things stand out to me after 4 weeks, and Cris after 3 and 4, and me after 4. We take a look at what's happening in 2023. 2022 is by the wayside. So the 3 things that stand out to me with the Lions are better run defense than I expected. They're really stopping people versus the run. And if that continues, that's going to force Bryce Young to win or cover by throwing in this game. And that's going to be one of my keys to this game. Much better run D than I would have expected. They're still feeling things out in 2 areas. Close game strategy. That was a weird game against Kansas City to start the year. Then they had that Seattle game. Toss-up games are still toss-up games with the Lions. They're not the Eagles right now where they could play their worst and automatically win. They're the Lions, so they still have to figure some things out. And with all the news that Cris just brought with the wide receivers, I still think the rotation is something they're still working out, and we'll see how it develops. I expect that they're going to have a great rotation, and they'll know exactly what they're going to do by week 8, 9, 10. But right now, they're still feeling things out. Those are my notes for the Lions.
And Jameson Williams.
The Lions are somewhere around 11-2, I think. And one of those 2 losses was against Carolina, and they got the snot kicked out of them. So a word of, just a little bit of caution there. Was that a matchup issue, or was that, just a motivation issue that game? Always something to worry about when it's, potentially a team has another team's number. So something to look out there.
Well, it was great timing that I got DJ Chark, the receiver for Carolina, because he played for the Lions last year. So we talked a little bit about that and the revenge factor in this game. But before we get to DJ, let's hear the cut from Jared Goff on the return of Jameson Williams, because there's a little bit like, hey, is they're going to be out of sync? He hasn't played with them for a while, obviously, since last season. but doesn't seem to be a problem for Jared Goff. So play that one.
I'm not sure which one it is. We'll go with this one.
Don't care. There's still going to be
no, that's the
and there will always.
It's the other one.
Okay.
There's really no getting on the same page with him. I don't think I feel good with him. It's just getting him reps. Whenever you're off for that long, I don't care who you are. You just need reps to get back into it and feel the speed of it, and run some plays and be on the field with all of us. But that would be it. If you want to call that getting on the same page, maybe it is. But I feel good with him on really everything. There's really no getting on the same page with him. I don't think.
So he feels very comfortable. They've been practicing. I listened to the entire interview with Williams that he did a couple of days ago, and he talked about how he was catching probably 100 balls a day with the jugs machine at home. So he says, I stopped counting. He goes, let's not think about that. I haven't been playing because I play every day. And so he's ready to go in that respect. Obviously, timing and the speed of the game is going to be something that, has got to catch up quickly.
Well, last year they really eased him in, and we kind of expected him after missing the first half of the season to, show himself. And I don't want to say he was a dud, but he just didn't meet expectations yet. So, it seems like when these players have been sitting out, it takes them a game to really get back to speed. And we saw that. I hear Kamara played really well, but he did only run for 33 yards on 11 catches. So
right.
That was kind of odd. And look for better from him this week.
And receivers on off of layoffs, though. The receiver he does his thing, and I don't see that as a major deal there. Ron, how did you rate Williams coming out of college?
Oh yeah, he was properly rated. He's strong. He was part of that Alabama contingent that did what they needed to do. I wouldn't expect big things from him until toward the end of the year. I think he'll be on a pitch count. I think game rhythm is different than practice rhythm. Yeah. So you're not banking everything on him, and you don't have to. Detroit's a much more complete team than they were 12 months ago, more complete than they were 24 months ago. So this is just another piece of the puzzle.
Yep. I think it's to hear from DJ Chark now. I talked to him yesterday. A really nice guy. It's the second time I've spoken to him. Last year, he was a Lion. This year, he has signed a 1-year deal. And then this year he signed a 1-year deal with Carolina. So really interesting. He's the second leading receiver behind Adam Thielen, who's at the back end of his career. So obviously the Panthers don't have a lot of weapons to throw to, and that doesn't help Young's situation either. That's the best he's got, and he's got to do the best they can at 0-4. But let's hear from DJ. Ted in Los Angeles, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for coming on.
Look forward to it.
Absolutely. Let's talk about your Panthers right now. How tough is it to get off to an 0-4 start, to specifically a new staff and really a new look roster in Carolina?
Well, it's definitely tough. Anytime you start off and anytime you're not winning, it's tough. But with us being a new group, experiencing this right now, it's hard, but we understand what we're up against, and I feel like it takes time to build what you want. If you're not faced with any adversity, you're not going to grow. So right now, this team, this era that we're in, I feel like it's teaching us a lot about ourselves and about what it takes to win.
Coach Reich stressed you guys had your chances, but need to learn to finish games and some opportunities. What do you need to work on? You led at halftime or tied 3 of the 4 games so far. Yeah,
I think we just finishing is broad, but just not making the mistakes in those critical moments because the NFL is already hard as it is. So to put ourselves, if we're in a critical moment and maybe it's a 3rd and 2 or something, just not jumping off sides or doing something like that to put us in a, worse position, a 3rd and long, and small stuff like that, or getting into the red zone and then making mistakes and taking ourselves out of the red zone because points are hard to come by. So just figuring out how to be better situationally, I think is a big part for us right now.
So tell us something about Bryce Young here, how he's coming along, first month as a pro, and maybe compared to early on in training camp and where he is now.
I think, nothing prepares you more for the NFL than the games itself. And I feel like over this last, month of football, just being able to go in and continue to persevere and pick yourself up whenever things don't go right, and knowing that you got your teammates with you, I feel like that's what I see. He's been pretty much the best every step of the way where he's been. And not to say that he hasn't had any adversity, because surely he has. But, this is, I feel like, maybe a different type of adversity. So seeing him continue to come to work and not, throwing in the towel, definitely with it being so early, and continue to have hope and push through and prepare like a pro, is probably what I noticed the most from him.
Yeah. The line of, are things slowing down for him? Is that something that's noticeable?
I believe so. I feel like the biggest thing when you notice his play, he's definitely efficient, so he's been doing well with that. Now it's just on us as a whole offense to provide more explosive plays, whether that's through him or through us or through the run game. But I think if you watch him play, he hasn't really just gotten there and, been throwing the ball everywhere. He's been pretty efficient from what I've seen. So I think the next step is just to continue to be efficient, but also, get those big plays when we need it. And that's on everybody's shoulder, not just his.
We're with Carolina receiver DJ Chark, and you're the right guy to ask this week. You played with the Lions last year. Describe catching passes from Jared Goff in your only season with Detroit.
Oh, it was great. I enjoyed it. One thing I could say about JG is he's very, like we were just speaking of efficient. He's very efficient, but he's really smart. So he knows where he wants to go with the ball. He has a game plan. He's already been diagnosed everything. He's seen the looks, and so when we're out there, it was really like just clockwork at during certain points of the season. And he's really a great guy to know off the field as well. So I have a good relationship with JG.
That's great. You guys came so close last year. And the last time I looked, the reason you didn't make the playoffs is because of some team named Carolina. How much revenge are the Lions going to come in with this game?
Oh, 100%. Just being in that building last year, knowing that, you take everything personal there. So this is obviously going to be marked on their calendar. And us as a team, we just have to be ready and know what's going on, and make plays and be physical and match the intensity. And, once you get in the field, you lock the gates and may the best team win. So it's understandable that they're going to come in and they're going to be, hot and ready to go. So we just got to make sure that we're ready to match that intensity.
A couple more things real quick. What do you see with the Lions defense, and how much input can you give since you faced those guys in practice every day last season?
I mean, a lot of input. I know a lot of the players. I know a lot of the tendencies and things like that. But they're definitely playing much better than last year. And that's credit to, AG, defensive coordinator. I know the mentality that they come in every game with. And so I'm excited about that matchup. They're not really trying to do anything to trick you or surprise you. They're going to come out and play their brand of football and, try to be physical. So we understand that that's what we're going against this week.
We really appreciate your time, man.
For sure. I appreciate you guys.
DJ, Ted in Los Angeles, how are you? He's a really good guy. And, there aren't a lot of players who will go into depth like he did.
No kidding.
He speaks his mind, and he talks about his quarterback. It's not like he's just trying to get rid of me. And that's one of the things I really appreciate him.
Yeah, I can't believe how much thought he put into his comments about Bryce. It's just very unusual.
Yep, he's great. And again, the perfect guy, played for the Lions. So who better to get than in that respect? So, and he knows him well. It's going to be, I love the fact, a lot of times you ask a guy a question. So you given any input on the team you play with? Nah, it's not important. Either, hell yeah, I've given input. I know every guy on that defense. Love that.
So a couple of stats here.
Yes.
Bryce Young's yards per completion is near rock bottom in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's learning the league. His receiver core generally unproven. The offensive line has a tough time protecting for a rookie. They're behind in games, but he's not throwing for yards per completion except for one player. DJ Chark, 7 catches, 129 yards. He's the big threat. If you take Chark out of the equation, if the Lions take him out of the mix in this game, you're going to get a bunch of dink and dunk, and then you hope that Carolina can run on this team.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they can. Right now, I've deemed Carolina just a little bit from my opening number at the start of the year to where I am now. I don't know how that meshes with what you've done, Cris.
I have this. My model shows that the 10 is actually short, but it's an unusual spot. They were in the same position after week 1 when they beat Kansas City, come in off a 10-day rest, and they're Seattle's better than Carolina, of course, but Detroit's the largest favorite they've been since 2017. There's expectations. They better not lose this game. I don't think they will. As far as a straight bet wager, no interest. How about you guys?
No, I think Carolina is going to give them all they can handle, especially defensively, and keep it a game. But if they win, obviously it'd be a huge upset, and it just doesn't figure that they're just not good enough. And I love Detroit off the layoff, but as you say, they are banged up.
My numbers would say, okay, there would be a lean to Carolina. But this is kind of a weird thing to mention. I don't think Carolina is built for backdoor covers like some other offensive teams. So they need to play close right away. Otherwise, they're playing into the hands of the Lions. You never know in one game whether that's going to be true or not. But I would have concern that if Carolina got behind by double digits, they can't close the gap when they need to cover.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Carolina has had the lead in all 4 games, haven't they?
Well, I said in the interview, that they've had the lead at halftime twice, and they were tied at the half and the other time. So in 3 of their 4 games, they're in the game, and then they just fell apart in the second half. So not a good sign from an overall seasonal standpoint. But again, they're learning. They got a new staff, new team. They're not great. And I think one of the issues is, again, Adam Thielen is their top guy, but he's at the end of his career. And, he can't separate or anything the way he used to. So there's short stuff to him. And how are you going to get a lot of points? That's a major issue all season long for them.
After game 6, they'll have the bye week. Very, very important for new coaches. We may see some improvements after that. I will be looking to see whether or not we can get some edges on Carolina after week 6. Right now, they're just learning on the fly, not an easy thing in the NFL.
So I'm looking at this strength of schedule played chart, and we have the team that has played the most difficult schedule coming in to play the team that has the 4th easiest schedule so far. I don't think that strength of schedule matters as much as it does in NCAA, but it does matter a little bit here.
I think it matters more than a little bit because every game is a matchup. And if you're against a tougher team, you're against a tougher team. I don't give a damn what you played last week or the next week. Today, it's a tough matchup. And if you do that throughout the season, it matters a lot.
And I'll be right in the middle of that. When it's pronounced like we're talking about with Denver and the Jets, it's meaningful. When it's not pronounced, it's not meaningful because we don't know who these teams are yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Perceived bad teams could be good teams. But there is a schedule difference clearly in this matchup, like you said, Cris.
Yeah, my model had it as Denver favored by less than a point. So I threw in some Jets teasers, which I think is a good look. They showed signs of life last week and scared the crap out of me that they might beat Kansas City because I needed Kansas City just to win the game. Do you guys think that the Jets can build off of that, or was that Kansas City slacking and letting them come back?
I think they can build off it to a point, but Zach Wilson is only good to a point. So, is he learning? Is he learning how not to screw it up? Because he's not going to win you a lot. The guy has a really good arm. There's nothing wrong with his arm. It's decision making. It's accuracy when it needs to be. Because overall, he's not bad, but he's got to be better when it counts.
This has to be a get well spot. If you look at Denver's defense, I'd be shocked, Cris, if you didn't have them in the bottom three, because they're not doing anything right defensively. They're allowing, all these points per game. Their yards per carry, bottom four, huh? So you got three teams worse than them. Okay, I have maybe one team worse than them, but regardless, they're not doing well. And we talked about who they played: Vegas, Washington, Miami, obviously tough team, 70 points allowed. But if you take that out, it's still not a pretty picture.
Nope. And by the 20 offensive touchdowns they've allowed in 4 games, the most in Super Bowl history since the Super Bowl era started. That's insane. 20 in 4 games.
The other shift for the Jets is Breece Hall is going to be off his pitch count, so to speak. So they're going to be using him more, which should help out the offense a little bit.
Yep.
I just feel like I feel like the Jets can keep this within a teaser range nicely. It seems like a great teaser play.
Yeah, can you trust Denver really doing anything? And remember, they almost lost to Chicago last week. They had to make an incredible comeback. So this team is far from being where they want to be.
I'd like to see the Jets run the ball consistently on Denver to set up the play action. What you want to do is make things more comfortable for Wilson. You don't want him to throw into coverage or win on 3rd and 8, because he's not winning on 3rd and 8 right now. He's going to throw things in areas that you don't want him to throw passes. They have enough. Between Delvin Cook and Breece Hall, that should get the job done offensively. And then if the Jets do anything about containing Russell Wilson, not letting him have one of those signature broken plays where he's certainly good for a 25-yard either pitch and run, or somebody gets behind the secondary and so on. On paper, if you look at just 2023 data, this really screams Jets.
Yeah, I made a comment that we were always able to rely on that Jets defense, and so far this season, they're dead nuts middle of the road at 14-15 range.
Yes.
But you know what I hadn't carefully examined ahead of that comment is that strength of schedule. So that contributes to their defense looking a little bit mediocre, or a little bit less than they may actually be. So we're gonna see this game whether they can turn up the heat against Denver.
Question for you and for Ted: do you know the health of running back Williams? I haven't had a chance to check.
No, I don't.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen anything.
2 carries, no yards last week. That really changed game flow.
Yeah, I don't know. Nathaniel Hackett Revenge Bowl is something that everybody's talking about, because let's face it, we got 2 1-3 teams here, so just the matchup itself is not too exciting in that respect. But will there be a wonderful handshake at the end of the game between Hackett and Sean Payton? Mm-hmm. Again, doesn't affect the game at all, but it's an interesting little sidelight.
I think it would have been more interesting with Rodgers in the game.
Of course.
Now what takes precedent is the fact that one of these teams is going to feel good because they're 2-3, and a lot of weird things have happened in the AFC. We know Joe Burrow isn't healthy. We know Pittsburgh's struggling on offense. They have the same scheme all the time. The Raiders are struggling. Some teams are falling out, so 2-3 isn't out of the picture. But the loser of this game is 1-4, and they are out of the picture.
Oh, they're done. Yeah, they're done.
It just says Williams may not play. So
wow.
At the site that I looked, it's not clear.
Hector says they're back practicing. So we get a report usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours from now that says questionable, doubtful, etc. If he's questionable, that's usually 75-25 they're playing. If he's doubtful, it's flipped the other way, 25% at most. And I'm really curious about that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yeah.
I don't know who he is, and I study football.
Well, you didn't study enough, so go back and do your homework.
40 years of draft reports, and look what happens. They spring a name on me, and I've got to study him, but I won't study him unless Williams is doubtful.
So tell us, list off all the wagers you have in this game, please.
All the wagers I have in this game? I think I have as many as Ted. No, I have them in one money line parlay. That's all I have them with I have the Jets. I cannot take Denver in this game. I'd love to get 3 points in the Jets. That's probably dreaming.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm more interested in I don't know how you feel philosophically about that, Cris. Usually you get a good enough money line that it's almost better to take the money line if you can't get the 3 points.
Yeah, but you know what? It's funny you bring that up. With the land frequency of 1 and 2 starting to happen a little bit higher, I think a closer study is needed on the value of the money lines. Frankly, just something to look into. I'm not saying that it's changed enough to change the consideration significantly, but I have a feeling it has changed a little bit.
I will agree with you there. And I just saw it's trending back up again. It was as low as 1.5, and now it's up to 2.5.
Yeah,
would be a buy on
2.5.
I'm saying this live on air, but 3 would be a buy on point for me.
And it opened at 0.5. Is that correct?
Not aware of that.
Okay.
It opened at 2.5.
Oh, it did open at 2.5. Okay.
Then it went down, and now it looks like it's.
Oh, it went down. Okay, back up. Okay. And one of the issues I have with the Jets is, they're averaging 13.5 points a game since week 2. On the road, that's not a good sign. Obviously, they need to do better, but obviously they're playing a team that they should be a hell of a lot more productive against in that Denver D. So interesting matchup there.
Well, I don't have a wager. I have a wager in every single game except Dallas and the 49ers.
Okay.
What do you guys think about that game?
I think that the stat of Christian McCaffrey with 13 straight games scoring a touchdown is one of the absolutely fantastic streaks ever. He's only played in 15 games, and he's already broken Jerry Rice's record. And Jerry Rice was there for 18 years, and he's been there for 15 games. That's insanely good. People have to know how great Christian McCaffrey is. And if he's healthy, I don't think it's close. He's the best player in the league. I want him on my side. I don't trust the Dallas defense against a quality team. Everybody's raving about their D, but who have they beaten? So here's your test, boys. Literally, we'll see what happens.
Youngstown State for Jaleel McLaughlin.
Okay.
Fantastic video game numbers there. So maybe he's a diamond in the rough. It'll be interesting.
You should have been watching
that in. Maybe I have to study him.
You need to go back and watch some of their games.
4.4 reportedly is his 40 speed, but you don't know if it was timed, at their stadium and so on.
So, Ron, you're a big proponent of revenge games early in the season, meaning something, and not meaning as much later on the season. Dallas has been knocked out of the playoffs, I think, 2 years in a row by San Francisco.
That's correct.
And this is week 5. How do you factor that in?
Not as much. I think it's important for Dallas, and I think it's important that it's a standalone game. So the whole nation is watching, and they have to do that. But they're playing what I would call, in the truest sense of the word, a professional team in San Francisco. And as I wrote, the 2 most important things to me in this game are, number one, is San Francisco ever not going to score on their first drive? They just script this thing so incredibly. If Dallas gets behind 7-0 right away, is it the same old story? And then the other thing is Dallas does a good job of utilizing their tight end. They do a good job of utilizing Pollard in the backfield. They have CeeDee Lamb, one of the best receivers. They got Michael Gallup. They also have a guy named Brandon Cooks, who could outrun anybody there, and they're not utilizing him. There's some weapons there that San Francisco, if there's a weak link on San Francisco, it's in their secondary. So my thing is, do you go in-game betting, and if San Francisco doesn't score on their first drive, that you bet Dallas? That might be a thing.
Yeah. And Brock Purdy, finally, it's starting to come out of my head that he's Mr. Irrelevant. He is Mr. Consistency. I think the guy hasn't thrown a pick yet this year, if I got that right. Is that correct?
Check it out for you.
Come on. We need to give this guy credit as one of the top several quarterbacks in the league. Forget the no picks. Come on. This guy's amazing.
It is. Yeah, but he had that game where the ball was bouncing all over the place.
Well, whatever. He doesn't make mistakes for the most part. He makes great decisions. And it's what Ron and I have talked about since I think we were both 12. The guy played a lot of college football, and he was ready to go as a pro. Nothing phased him at all. And he was game ready when he came, and he had his chance, and he's taken advantage of it. And he is a top several quarterback in this league. I don't care what anybody thinks. It's just hard to imagine. The last pick of the draft. I'm finally getting it out of my head. This guy is damn good and consistent.
So another note to make, Dallas and San Francisco are the two teams that have played the weakest schedules. How do you think that factors in with scoring in this game? If they're, how does that affect the way that they've been performing? And now they've been playing the weakest schedules, and now these are two quality teams. Supposedly, does everything get shut down?
No, I think San Francisco is who they are, and doesn't matter who they play. Obviously, the better defense they play, and Dallas has shown they're a very good defense, but they haven't beaten anybody. So here's the matchup it's about time. But when you win 14 straight in a regular season, it's not a fluke. They're doing everything right. And I think Dallas, all their wins have been by at least 20 points. Okay. So that's one of the great statistics of the year, but they haven't beaten anybody. So this is going to tell you a lot about both teams, specifically Dallas, though.
I don't know how to answer that question because it's not in my wheelhouse, but I will say that if I'm on Dallas's side, you've lost to this team twice in a row. You better have a different game plan the third time around. You better test that secondary. You better do whatever you need to do to get Dak's mobile enough. He could move the pocket. Like I said, use Brandon Cooks. He's way too fast for the San Francisco guys. Use CeeDee Lamb, of course. Use Ferguson. Do all these things. If I see a vanilla game plan from McCarthy, I think it plays right into the hands of San Francisco.
Yep.
I kind of lean Dallas's way. I think that they can keep it kind of close. Not doing anything with the total. That's about all we can do. I have a question here. Indisputably, there are two games that if you had looked a month ago, you'd go, what the hell is going on with those games? And indisputably, if you're using a model just based on this year's stats, you would have both Houston and Arizona favored by at least a field goal or more. But they're just short dogs. And we believe that they are parting the sea and overcoming the impossible. No offensive line for Houston, and they win. Arizona left for dead. They win. Atlanta, high aspirations. The Bengals, Super Bowl bound. How does this happen that both of these lines, neither of them are over 3? And what's going to happen? When do these teams fade? When do these teams get good?
You want to go first, Ted?
Well, new coaches, and they're playing hard for them, so I like that for both teams. There's something about Houston. I'm not. I don't even know how to read them. Okay, they shouldn't be winning many games at all. They've won 2 in a row, and they demolished Pittsburgh last week. I mean, how the hell did that happen? Obviously, Pittsburgh's got some issues. So, we'll deal with that later. I love everything Houston's doing. I love DeMeco Ryans. I like everything about him, except for he's a defensive coach. And I'm not a big fan of that right now in this league. But outside of that, you got to just give them a lot of credit. And Arizona is simply playing hard for their new coach. They are playing hard the entire game, even though they let one get away, when they had that lead. But credit the coaches too.
So I thought about this a little because I kind of anticipated getting a question like this from Cris. So, the old tennis strokes came back into play, being where you need to be on the court. Cincinnati, I agree completely. I mean, there's nothing in Cincinnati's 2023 resume that suggests they should be a favorite over almost anyone the way they're playing. And we talked about Burrow and his mobility, and he even talked about that a couple of days ago. But I have some flaws in Houston's resume, and it just seems like, how are they doing this? Smoke and mirrors. Because I'm looking at a team with a rookie quarterback that's one-dimensional. They're not running the ball that well. And the other thing they're not doing, if I look at their stat sheet here, is they're allowing 7 out of every 10 passes to be complete. And it seems to me that Atlanta can dictate play in this game, and they better dictate play, because if Atlanta can't take care of business against a Houston team that's reformatted its roster 4 years in a row and is one-dimensional, then I have to downgrade the coaching staff, which I've already been downgrading, but
right.
This is getting ridiculous if you can't take care of business at home against a Houston team that wasn't supposed to compete this year. I know Houston and Arizona are trying hard, and I know Stroud is knocking. What can you say about him? He's been unbelievable, but doing it with a one-dimensional team is just even better.
Right.
Than unbelievable.
Now, here we talked a lot about Bryce Young in our first game, and CJ Stroud has to be given full credit for everything he's done. He is the first quarterback in his first 4 games to be over 1,200 yards passing and 0 picks.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And he doesn't have much on offense. So the guy's just been spectacular, and he deserves all the credit in the world. And if he does it again in this game, do you trust Atlanta? And they're coming off the long trip from London, back home and all that kind of stuff. And they got their asses kicked by Jacksonville in that game. So why can't Houston do it again?
I referenced what the Lions coaches said after playing Atlanta. They were completely unprepared and did nothing, and it looked like they had the same game plan against Jacksonville. So at some point, and we say this every year, Ron, at some point you become the team that you are. The data shows exactly what you are, and we saw it with the Rams last year, how poorly they were playing. And Cincinnati and Atlanta are both kind of in the same category. At some point, you're going to have to pivot and realize how poorly these teams are playing. But it's just a tough pill to swallow. I don't think there's any way that both Houston and Arizona cover. But I am on both of those sides. It feels futile. And it seems like we could get embarrassed in either one of those games too. So
you almost have to just take the names Houston and Arizona out of your mind, and out of your heart. All is they're both playing hard, and they're not screwing up for the most part. So that's it. Forget what their names are.
I agree.
You literally have to do that. And by the way, it was nice of you to bring Coach Singletary back, Cris. They are who we thought they were.
I thought that was Dennis. What was his name?
No, Dennis Green. Wasn't that
Dennis
the other
Green?
One?
Yeah, Dennis.
Now
Green.
I got him mixed up.
Dennis Green said that, but he also said that when he was with Arizona.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're good there. I I see enough reason to think that Atlanta is not metrically behind right now Houston this year. The other game, Cincinnati's just not playing anywhere near where they need to play to have any confidence in them.
Right.
No, I've been
By the
saying,
way,
you know what? Joe Burrow is not responsible for the defense, and their defense is in the bottom third of the league. So
Right.
that's the defense isn't helping them at all, and they're in the bottom 5 offensively. So
Right.
they need to make some huge steps forward.
Yeah, and
The
one
other game
stat.
I haven't. The other game I haven't
Real
interested-
quick, before we go to another game, I just
Mhm.
want to say one more thing about Arizona. We're crediting them for playing hard for their new coach. Blah 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 blah. They have lost 10 of their last 11 games. Okay, that's a stat that is real. So let's not go overboard here. It's not like they're busting ass all over the place on the win column. They're not. Okay.
I don't want to hear stuff like that. I just want affirmation from my wagers.
Okay, you got it.
The Titans,
I
and the,
like
the Titans
this
and the
comment.
Colts. The Titans and the Colts. We get Taylor back. What kind of effect is that going to have for the Colts? And how do you guys see this game shaping out? It's been some unusual line movement where you had the Colts open up as 1.5-point favorites, which I can see that happening. But the money has been all one-sided on the Titans, and they're up to 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I've been waiting for my Badger buddy Jonathan Taylor to show up again. So nice to have him back. He's a great guy, by the way. He really is. Forget the holdout stuff. It's all business, and he does what he wants to do. Like Indy's off of back-to-back overtime games. Will that affect it at all? I have no idea. But finally, Tennessee showed up, and they've beaten Indy 5 straight times. So they've got their number. Will they be able to do it on the road this week? I don't fully trust the Colts, that's for sure. But Anthony Richardson's doing some. You just never know what you're going to get out of him.
I'm surprised at the line movement because I had kind of dismissed this game. I've got so much stuff going on, and then all of a sudden now I have to get involved in this game. 2.5 is ridiculous. Indy should not be that big an underdog. For me, Indy is the highest variance team in the league. We talked about this, Cris and I, when we did a snapshot of high confidence, medium confidence, low confidence on Tuesday. I generally have an opinion on Indianapolis that I don't know where they're at. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I don't know what their game plan is from week to week. I'm learning on the fly. And so I wanted to stay away from this high variance game, but at the current line, I may not be able to.
Well, I got involved in it early with some teasers on Tennessee and a little bit of a straight bet. But at the current level, I would only take Tennessee at a pick 'em or a -1. At the current level, you have to start looking the Colts' direction for sure.
Yeah, especially the Titans on the road. You never know what you're going to get. Will it be we talked about Derrick Henry tends to get off to a slow start, and then he's come out of that now.
Right.
Now, can he do it again against an Indy run D? And where do you rate them, Ron?
Indy's run D is performing above expectations right now, but I expect to see a heavy dose of Derrick Henry. And you're absolutely right. As the season rolls along, he could go 25-110 in this game and control clock, which would take a lot of pressure off Tannehill, because you don't want Tannehill throwing into coverage, because that's a good way to lose a game.
Yeah, and Indy's D, I think, is really banged up. They've got like 3 or 4 guys out this week. So that is not a good sign in that department.
They've just announced that St. Brown is doubtful for the Lions.
Okay,
that figures. Yep.
Adjust accordingly, because that
Jameson Williams, baby.
And Gibbs now is questionable. So what the hell's going on with that team?
What happened to Gibbs? I didn't remember seeing him hurt.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment about Gibbs. A lot of people in Twitter land and elsewhere are saying, how come Gibbs isn't getting the ball more? How come Gibbs isn't getting the ball?
Because he's hurt?
He's getting the ball just fine. You're going to force feed a rookie and run him to the ground when the end game in Detroit is not to make the playoffs, but get there and do something. There's no way I would give him any more carries than he's been getting.
I'll agree with that. 100%.
What's his injury? I didn't see that
Hamstring.
before. Oh, okay.
Typical running back injury.
Yep. In this era, especially when they're
Ryan,
not
what do
ready
you
to
think
play.
about that total in the New England game? Birdie was asking about that nonsense.
Yeah. I don't usually play many totals, but this is one I played early, and it's the other way. I played the under.
Well, that's underwhelming.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Well, I guess the fact that they
could only
scored
look
3
under,
points
too.
last week, right? That helps the unders right there. Where's the offense coming from?
Yeah, I know people might look at the overs because New England's banged up. Matthew Judon, he's gone, so that's one of the best pass rushers in the league out. And then the rookie Christian Gonzalez is out. They bring back the guy from, that's not going to be that much help this week, I would think. Fundamentally sound is the way Bill Belichick's defenses play, but they're going to do it with athletes that are not quite as good as their starting group. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and
But,
what kind of
I should say New Orleans, one of the most vanilla offenses in the league, run by Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael. It's just they're setting football back a few years with the way they're running the offense. Just use Taysom Hill and spread them out all over the place. Don't do any of this other stuff.
Yeah, and they might even be more conservative. Just the fact that Derek Carr, he's banged up, and you just want to play it safe and not do anything stupid, and have him, doing whatever it takes. The shoulder injury. So, Taysom Hill should get a few extra touches this week for sure.
There's 2 games that stick out like a sore thumb to me that have been definitely have been one-way action, and that is the home underdogs, Rams and Vikings. Both spots look like the perfect scenario for Kansas City and the Eagles to have a little bit of a letdown and give one up, and the home team to take advantage. Do you guys see it that way, or are these the banana in the tailpipe underdogs?
Well, I don't trust the Rams, but I give them credit for doing whatever they're doing with such a young team. It's been fantastic. It looks like Cooper Kupp has a great chance to play. So that's a nice thing. He's playing, but that's one of those things where, okay, he hasn't played in a while either. The timing's going to be interesting there. Just give it to Puka, baby. Who needs Cooper Kupp? When you got Cooper and Puka, say that fast, and Tutu, I don't know what the hell. It sounds more like a dress shop than it does a football team. But I like their receiving core now, and so does Matthew Stafford. But I still, they got no run game, and I don't trust whatever they're doing in that department. They just want to keep this game close.
Yeah, I think the Rams have done enough this season to convince me that why would I want to lay 4 points on the road? Whether they've done enough for me to back the Rams, I have to look into that game a lot more. But right now, my first inclination is the Rams are playing just fine football. So why do you want to give them 4 points?
Yeah.
Well, and Stafford's working off of that hip pointer, and that's not very good for him.
No.
We're not, he's going to get knocked out of the lineup. It's either this week or the next week or the week after. That's a concern. And I've been complaining about Philadelphia getting away with murder. They win games with smoke and mirrors. And obviously I've been supporting the Rams all year. And I was just shocked when the model came out and actually showed a little bit of value on Philadelphia. So I don't know what the hell's going on there. Mm-hmm. What about you, Ron? If Kansas City gets down to 3, who's your horse in that race?
My horses, I took Minnesota at the opener because I thought it was a bad line.
What was the number?
5 or 5.5, I believe it was.
Oh, really? Okay.
Ridiculous.
So what is it now?
It's a week 3.5.
Wow, good value, early value there.
Yeah. I don't think it'll hit 3, but it could. It could.
Would it surprise me if Minnesota self-destructed for the 19th time in a row? No, it wouldn't surprise me. But basically, if you take the stupid turnovers that they're having, self-inflicted wounds out of the equation, not only should this team be 3-1, but this team should be highly competitive offensively with Kansas City. Cris and I both know that Kansas City does enough to win games. So it's fruitless to think that Minnesota has a 50-50 chance to win the game. But contrary to what I said about Carolina, Minnesota always has the opportunity to backdoor cover. And usually that's the way they get back into the games. They have the offense to backdoor cover if you need to anyway.
Right.
And they also have the defense where they could be caught from behind, where
Yep.
Kansas City can take the lead and win at the end of the game. So
Yep.
a shootout, high-scoring game. I think for me, the opening line was just a little too much to ignore.
Yeah, and I think the last time I checked, Kansas City and Philadelphia were in the Super Bowl. So you say they're winning with smoke and mirrors, but they're just better than most teams. That's why they win. They may not win pretty, but they're winning because they're better. And
you got to
that's
win
the
the
bottom
close
line.
games.
And same with Kansas City. Even though Kansas City is limited offensively now, outside of Kelsey, there's not a lot of trust in those receivers. And he's just doing it because he's Patrick Mahomes.
That's true. There's only one game of consequence we haven't discussed, and that is the game in London.
Yeah.
Jacksonville and the Buffalo Bills. My model says to take the Bills even on the point spread, but I can't really stomach that. It just feels like a horrible situation coming off that big Miami win. Jacksonville's been hanging out there and showed a little bit of signs of life last week, and they're getting a little bit healthier. Buffalo may get Von Miller, but they lost one of their superstars on defense. So how does that all shape out for you guys?
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. Yeah. Metrically, to not have your left tackle for the first 4 weeks and then bring him back is a big gain. So Robinson back for Jacksonville, I think that has to be factored into the equation.
But they're talking about he may not go to his normal position, right?
He may go to right tackle. I read that too. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. But just having him on the line has got to be a comfort factor for Trevor Lawrence. So I do weigh that. And Tre'Davious White, yeah, that loss is kind of meaningful too. The situation with the travel and so on. It's not just one thing by itself wouldn't be meaningful. Just the travel alone doesn't really move the needle. But the combination of these things has me liking Jacksonville in this particular game. Again, when Josh Allen tries to do too much, he gets into trouble. And so if he tries to do too much, this is going to be a problem. Jacksonville's stat sheet, Cris will probably agree, not perfect this year. It's kind of middle of the road and stuff like that. Not doing anything poorly, not doing anything particularly great. I'd like to see Travis Etienne have a better game in this spot. I wouldn't be shocked at a Jacksonville win. So I personally think they're the right side. Do I think Buffalo in general is a better team? Yes, I do think Buffalo in general is the better team.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is not stressed enough, and travel is usually a little overrated in this fact, but it's the first time a team's ever been in London for back-to-back games. And they should have a major edge. Just they're there. They don't have to think about nothing. They just practice on a schedule. And then Buffalo shows up and, the old clock in the head stuff. You never know how that's going to affect the team. But I give a little bit of an edge to Jacksonville in that department.
I don't. You know what? I have a differing opinion because it allows them to kind of settle in a little bit, do a lot of exploring, and just kind of get off focus a little bit. Whereas Buffalo is, they're in this traveling situation, and it's all about the game. There's no distractions. There's no time for it, and potentially Jacksonville does have a little time to just get a little lazy and unfocused.
Well,
Somewhat
I can't see a
somewhat meaningless stat alert. Obviously, a huge game last week, Buffalo and Miami. As I have it, 14 out of the last 58 games after Buffalo has played Miami, they have not covered the spread.
Wow.
So, that's just an enormous number. You don't get sample sizes like that.
Nice stat.
Yeah. So, how much do you weigh that by itself? Again, it's not that meaningful by itself. It's just a combination of factors.
I've never heard the Big Ben factor come up in odds the way you figure stuff. I don't see a whole team being affected because they might spend one day going out sightseeing and looking for, Princess Di's grave or something. I don't think that's going to affect this game. I seriously doubt it.
Well, they're certainly not going to be having nice meals. The food sucks there.
Well, that's a whole different story. You know what? That might be a big edge
be
buffalo.
A negative for the Jags.
Exactly. You're going to all the Indian restaurants. Good luck, boys.
What's on tap next week?
Oh God, you're doing this to me again. I'm not prepared.
Come on, Ted. It's your show.
I know, but it's I let me look it up. Hold on. I deal with this stuff week to week, and start talking, boys. I'll be there in a second.
You get a kick in the nuts for not being prepared again. Jesus.
A double kick. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I will say it's going to be a fun week. It's kind of like they say what is it? Saturday and on PGA is moving week.
Yeah.
Moving day in the PGA.
Moving day, yes.
It's almost like start of the second quartile. It's an important game for a lot of these teams.
Yep. Next week we have Indy at Jacksonville and the Patriots at the Raiders.
Well, something talking about Indy as part of the show will be interesting because I want to get a clear perspective about Indy anyway. I think it's a fascinating team to think about moving forward. So I'm looking forward to that.
And I will be asking for Jonathan Taylor, whether I get him or not. I don't usually know in advance, but that's one guy I will be definitely asking for. By the way, Sports USA, we start our hockey schedule opening night next Tuesday.
Oh, get the puck out of here, really?
Right in front of in Chris's backyard in Vegas. We're doing the season opener. Vegas, they raised the Stanley Cup banner against Seattle. So we're doing that game on Tuesday. Mike, quick turnaround. Unbelievable. Here we go.
All right. Well, I guess that kind of wraps things up.
Yeah. Can I throw out one Dick Butkus stat that
sure.
Most people either never knew or long forgot about, and I think it's one of the greatest stats when it comes to an award in the history of the league. Dick Butkus won back-to-back NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards in 69 and 70. And in 69, he was the Defensive Player of the Year with a one-win team.
Jesus.
Now think about that. That's how great it was. That's an incredible stat.
Weren't Alex Karras and Paul Hornung suspended then?
No, I don't know about that. No, I think that was a few years before that. I think that was more in the mid 60s. Yeah, but
okay.
Yeah, but why? So you're going to give him Defensive Player of the Year because the other guys are out? No, they were suspended because they were doing Vegas Cris stuff when they weren't allowed to in those days.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll be back on Tuesday with actually, we're going to be a little late next week, 1 p.m. Pacific time. I think we'll be there on Tuesday, and then same time, noon Friday.
Yep, sounds great. And don't forget to mention the hockey game on Tuesday. I know that'll be an important thing for you. Are you going to the game, Cris?
No.
I didn't think so.
He doesn't mix sports.
Later.